All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going on a kind of archaeological dig, not into the dirt, but into a lost world of belief. We're talking about a whole pantheon of powerful gods and ancient spirits that has been almost completely swallowed by time. We are peeling back the layers on the incredible mysteries of Slavic mythology. I mean, think about it for a second. It's a wild question, isn't it? We all know the names Zeus, Odin, Ra. They're household names. But what about Perun or Veles? How does a belief system that once stretched across half of Europe become so quiet? That is the central mystery we're going to try and unravel today.
So here's our map for this journey. We're going to do this in 5 parts. First, we'll face the silent past to figure out why the myths went missing in the first place. Then, we'll build a world from sand, reconstructing their creation story. After that, we witness the eternal battle at the very heart of their cosmos, then meet the wider world of gods, oaths, and spirits. And finally, we'll listen for the echoes in the dark to see how these old ways actually survived.
Okay, so first things first, we have to confront the biggest challenge right up front, the silent past. This is the whole mystery of the missing stories, and it's the reason most of us have never even heard of these gods. This quote from historian M. Laser just hits the nail on the head. It frames our whole journey perfectly. You see, unlike the Greeks with their epic poems or the Norse with their Eddas, the early Slavs left us, well, almost nothing. We're not just reading their mythology, we're basically detectives, piecing it together from tiny, scattered fragments. So, why is it so quiet? Well, there are some pretty big reasons. For starters, the early Slavs were an oral culture. They told stories, they didn't write them down, so no grand Slavic epics survived. The main sources we do have come from outsiders, like Christian monks or Muslim travelers, and you can bet they were biased. They often saw these beliefs as devil worship. And then centuries later, when people finally started writing these old tales down, they were already mixed up with new religions and new politics. It's a puzzle with most of the pieces just gone. But even with all that silence, scholars have managed to find some of those missing pieces. And from just a few grains of information, we can start to reconstruct their primordial beginning. We can build a whole world from sand. So, picture this. Before everything, there was nothing. No sky, no earth, no light, just a huge, bottomless black ocean. Totally silent, totally still. A primordial void just waiting for the first spark of an idea to give it shape. And then, out of that total stillness, a consciousness wakes up. It wasn't born, it just was. This was Rod, the first god, the ancestor of absolutely everything, coming to awareness in a completely empty universe. Now, Rod feels this immense loneliness, so he calls a companion up from the dark water, a clever but shadowy kind of spirit. Rod gives this being a job: dive to the bottom of the sea and bring back the material of creation itself, sand. The companion does it, but, and this is so important, in an act of pure defiance, he hides a mouthful of sand for himself. Rod, not knowing this, takes the sand he's given and sprinkles it on the water, creating the very first speck of land. And this is where it gets really brilliant, a perfect example of unintended consequences. While Rod is sleeping on this new little island, his companion tries to push him off and claim it for himself. But every time he shoves, the land just stretches. It expands. His attempt to overthrow the creator accidentally ends up sculpting the entire world, raising up mountains and spreading out the plains. His betrayal literally makes the world bigger. So when Rod woke up, he immediately understood the betrayal. He struck his companion down, casting him into this dark, empty space below the new Earth. And that one act gives the whole cosmos its structure. It creates 3 realms: Prav, the heavenly world of divine order; Yav, our visible middle world where we live; and Nav, the hidden underworld where that dark spirit fell. It's from this division, this conflict between the heavens and the depths, that the central story of their entire pantheon is born. The Slavic universe was literally born from a lie. And this brings us right to the heart of it all, the eternal battle, the endless conflict between the new god of the sky and the new lord of the underworld. This entire conflict is built on this great duality. On one side, you've got Perun. He's the thunder god, king of the sky, a force of order, law, and raw power, ruling from the highest mountain peaks. And on the other side, you have Veles, who was once that dark companion. He's now the lord of the underworld, of cattle, wealth, and magic. a force of chaos and trickery, ruling from the low places of the earth.
So how does their endless war kick off? With an act of cosmic grand larceny. Veles, ever the trickster, shapeshifts into a massive serpent. He slithers up from the underworld, all the way into Perun's heavenly domain, and he steals his divine herd of cattle. And these aren't just any cows, these are beasts that graze on the clouds themselves.
What happens next is this incredible, epic chase that also happens to explain the very nature of thunderstorms. A totally furious Perun hunts Veles down, throwing lightning bolts that shatter rocks and split trees. Veles flees for his life, constantly changing shape, into a bull, a wolf, a toad, anything to hide from the sky god's fury. So you have to imagine, when an ancient Slav saw a thunderstorm rolling in, they weren't just seeing weather, they were seeing the gods at war, a celestial battle playing out right above their heads. And it only ends when Perun finally lands a massive blow, driving Veles all the way back down into the underworld. But, Slavic belief was so much more than just this one great conflict. So for our fourth section, let's explore the wider pantheon and see how these beliefs were woven right into the fabric of everyday life. So beyond Perun and Veles, there's this rich and fascinating world. You've got Svarog, the divine blacksmith who literally forged the sun. He's a god of creation and fire. His son, Dažbog, was the giving god who carried that sun across the sky, bringing us all warmth and life. Then there was Mokosh, the moist Mother Earth, a powerful goddess who didn't just govern the soil and fertility, but the very threads of fate. And Stribo, the grandfather of the winds, whose breath could be a gentle breeze or a destructive hurricane. Each one ruled an aspect of the world that you had to understand and respect. And this wasn't just some abstract theology class. This was real. It was practical. These gods were a part of society. When early Slavic tribes made a peace treaty, they swore their oaths in the name of Perun. And why him? Because, as the god of justice and order, he was the ultimate enforcer. Breaking that oath meant you were literally inviting a thunderbolt down on your head. Now, the world was also absolutely teeming with powerful spirits. This quote here introduces one of the most famous, the Leshy, the Lord of the Forest. This guy was a shapeshifter. He could be as tall as the trees or small enough to hide behind a blade of grass. Get on his good side, and he might help you hunt. But get on his bad side, he'd lead you in circles until you were lost forever. He was the wild, untamable soul of the forest itself. So all of this brings us to our final, critical section, Echoes in the Dark. What in the world happened to all these gods and spirits when a new religion swept across the land? How did they manage to survive? This slide shows us the secret. It was a great transformation. The old beliefs weren't just erased, they were absorbed and they were rebranded. Nature spirits like the Leshy were suddenly recast as devils, given horns and cloven hooves to make them seem evil. And get this, the switch from cremation to burial, a core Christian practice, created a brand new kind of folk terror. The old belief was that fire released the soul. Without it, you got the restless dead, spirits trapped in bodies that might come back. And right there, that is the origin of the Slavic vampire. So you see, the old gods never truly disappeared. Perun the Thunderer, he just went into hiding, tucked away inside stories of the Christian Saint Elijah, who, what do you know, also rode a flaming chariot across the sky that caused thunder. The spirits of the forest and the river became the monsters in fairy tales. They retreated into folklore, their ancient powers still echoing in the dark. Ultimately, the story of Slavic mythology isn't really one of disappearance at all, but one of transformation. These gods and spirits didn't die. They just changed their names, changed their costumes. And it leaves us with this one last thought. If a thunder god can hide behind the face of a saint, and if a forest spirit can become a monster in a children's story, what other ancient echoes are hiding in plain sight all around us right now?